See you later.
Bit of a teenage prodigy and
Oh, things are not stopping here. I'll just keep going like I am. Here's a car going past. Man alive, switch off and hi, how you going? Now, what I decided to do, I actually want to do a bit of a talk, a chat if you like, about democracy, because we hear a lot about the West and democracy sort of go together. That is democracy, freedom. That is people decide which government they have, etc. Democracy. So what I want to do is see this little, this is the website that I have here. You can have a look at that. And you can actually go to have a look at some of the things on this. This is actually a website that I've got here. We'll just go back here. And what I've done is I've actually got one that's actually called democracy. So democracy. So here it comes up here now. This is actually have democracy. So we'll go on here. Democracy, they said backwards. But I actually want to talk about this, and I'm actually going to read it out. So this is actually my smartphone. That's actually, if you go on my website, You Must Repent, you'll see one there at the top that talks about democracy. It's very important, it is important what I'm talking about, isn't it? Because we are talking about democracy, like Australia, democracy, come together. England, democracy, come together. America, democracy. Europe, democracy. And America and all the countries are trying to force democracy onto everybody. Anyway, let me just read this out and I'll see how it goes. Democracy is probably the West motor. Democracy is probably the West motor. Democracy. And when the President of America said, I remember that time too, the American President said, once the Iraq citizens are liberated, they will wave flags crying, free at last. It was a rude shock for all people in the West, England, America and others. Instead of welcoming democracy, people were not ready for it. Other groups then moved in, lording over the citizens. What filled the gap was not, this is God's trait, what came in place of democracy was not something pure, peace, gentle, kind, mercy, full of reason, goodness, compassion, caring about each other, no uncertainty, no insincerity, and the list can go on. What ended up happening is, instead, terrorists, suicide bombers, tribal groups not supporting a single government filled the gap in place of a democracy. So what happened was, then nothing. No one, there was no certainty, is there? There is no pureness, there is no kindness, there is no mercy, there is no open to reason, is there? That's actually what's happened. Democracy was supposed to be in Iraq, but it's not. Then we have the same sort of situations happening in Afghanistan, Syria, if you like, Libya. So we see democracy sort of got real problems, hasn't it? A wide awakening to the West. Democracy isn't too welcomed in a lot of places. Did the West learn through their mistakes? No. And there's actually chaos everywhere, isn't there? Ukraine's the closest as well, isn't it? Yet the West has to support Ukraine, isn't it? How will the Ukraine actually go? See, the pro-Russian, of course, are causing a lot of troubles. And originally, the Kyiv area, the pro-Russians just said, look, just let us have our vote to decide which way to go. But the West, or Ukraine, if you like, with the West support, decided, no, don't do that. Just force Ukraine, the pro-Russians, if you like, to toe the line. But now there's trouble, isn't there? So that's a push pushing democracy in Ukraine, but it hasn't gone right. But look, major mistakes being made is people are so different that all citizens, people's groups, organisations, churches, countries, government, movements, some want to live in an area where they choose whether they do the right thing or wrong thing. And what is right or wrong is determined by the individual. And often it's a matter of a person's conscience. Some governments try to govern the right way, such as we do here in Australia, England, America, and etc. The only reason it works okay is democracy has been in place for a long time, and democracy has been there. And people's rights are enshrined in their constitutions, etc. And we know how difficult it is even for us, under a strong democracy, government and law, to keep democracy in place where people do the right thing. Because corruption always comes up. Rears its head, corruption, all the time. So imagine how difficult it is for countries that haven't really developed democracy. So what are we to do? So we have a choice. There is a choice to run the country for the benefits of people. There is a choice where leaders have power to benefit themselves. There is a choice where they adopt a democracy, but leaders milk the people through corruption. There is a choice to give each individual the opportunity to have a good life, families, and etc. There's also a choice to let groups different from the main paradigm to have a good life for its group. So we can see there are different ways of running a country. So, some groups do try to do the right thing, and there are also groups who don't do the right thing at all, deliberately. So choices have to be made. We are lucky that when we go back in history, in the West, the Christian church had a lot of leaders in government. That's why we've got such a solid foundation, what is right and what is wrong. And Constantine, of course, is the first person that actually a Roman emperor that took on the Christian ethos. And you can see enshrined in the Roman law and everywhere was God's traits. Now there are problems, of course, but basically that's where it actually came from. Constantine, probably about 293, something like that. But that's interesting, isn't it? We know there's a lot of issues around, we know that. But at least around Europe, England, America, Australia, has a foundation which gives us what we call is the right sort of thing where people, individuals have a bit of worth and people can achieve great things. What I'm clearly saying out of all this is that because we have, I'm clearly saying because of this we have great countries and great people who are changing the world and offering civilization a better future. And I am putting that down to the fact that in the West we basically have a solid foundation, and it actually came, if you like, from the Jews, from the Christian world, and God's traits are actually enshrined into the constitutions and etc. etc. There are issues with it, but at least there was a foundation there. I'll finish this off. I am clearly claiming the Christian Bible, the God of the Bible, is the reason of the greatness we have in society. You may not agree with me. Well, at least this page is my choice, so I've actually got the choice, haven't I? But you can make comments. If you go down the bottom here, you'll actually see a section where you can respond. If you respond, I'll put the link and the information down so people can see it. But I am a Christian. I serve the living God. And we know that the world has its goodness and has a thought about whether the individual person is important has come from the Christian Foundation. Don't know whether you agree with that. Anyway, that's 9 minutes and that's all I'm going to do. I'll catch you next time. But make a comment. Let's get going and say something if you agree or disagree with me.